War for Cybertron is back again with the new Studio Series Gamer Edition Start. But in this line that's had a somewhat inconsistent selection so far, will Starscream return us to the glory days of this series? Or does Hasbro have another certified seeker stinker on their hands? Welcome back to the show, it's Gay for May. Starscream's vehicle mode is his Cybertronian jet form, as featured in the War for Cybertron games. This release is actually based on its hovering form, which is why the jet has these bulky, built-to-rule-esque proportions. A long, thick fuselage, giant thrusters, but teeny tiny baby wings. It's an interesting choice, and at least broadly speaking, it actually lines up pretty closely to the CAD model from the game, except for one very clear and obvious difference. As noted by our Hasbro designer Evan Brooks, the nose of the jet has been noticeably enlarged, widening the orange cockpit to an almost comical degree, which shocked many fans upon reveal. Putting aside why alien jets need cockpits in the first place, Evan explained that they engineered the robot head to store here in vehicle mode, so the section was stretched out to accommodate, which sounds like a really ass-backwards way to design something, you know? I realized that the old figure didn't give a single shit and left the back of the head sitting visible in jet mode, but it's completely asinine to think that 10 years later, the only new idea they could come up with leaves the vehicle mode looking like it's been dabbling with an inflation fetish, especially when there's a big and coincidentally head-shaped hole in the jet left over after transforming. Damn, maybe we could put something there, I don't know. The dopey design decisions don't end here, unfortunately. While I was writing this video, I decided to check out some game clips to understand the context behind this figure. This is what's known as research in the business. And I found out that the jet mode actually has another inaccuracy. As I mentioned, the jet is supposed to be in its hover configuration, which in-game is how the character traverses freely in vehicle mode, but his tail fins are up in their Tetrajet configuration, for when Starscream is flying around at top speed. My theory is that because they didn't want the wings to look too big in robot mode, they opted to do the hover mode, which has smaller wings, while changing the rear fin so people wouldn't ask why it wasn't a Tetrajet. It might be an ultimately inconsequential detail, but the fact that any amount of basic research would have shown it to be inaccurate should prove that Hasbro literally could not give two fricks about this series. I don't understand what this company's problem is, because after all that, the least they could have done was to give Starscream some decent display options, but no! He doesn't even have a 3mm Bandai Tamashii compatible stand port in either mode, cause it's not as if Hasbro makes their own flight stands for figures. The best we got was in that starting lineup collection that I don't believe any real humans paid money for. I might have bought some for myself, but they didn't have any good players, like Jackie Moon or Magic Johnson. Yeah, that's what the ladies call me too. In robot mode, Starscream is a beefy, chunky, Campbell's soup-looking motherfucker. I know meatiness was the aesthetic choice made for the War for Cybertron games as a series, but even compared to the CAD model, Starscream seems a bit bigger than he should be. The most obvious difference is the increased chest size, which again is thanks to the changes made to the vehicle mode. There are other smaller but noticeable differences too, like the collar and the shape of the legs, which are so clearly off that you have to wonder if they even bothered to open their fucking eyes when they were modeling this robot mode. Hasbro should be concerned when a third-party company in a cave with a box of scraps can craft a more accurate looking figure than the official rights holder. But wait, there's more. I can think of one thing most Transformers have in common with your mother, and it's having a big hole in the middle of their thighs. Starscreams are pretty big, however, thankfully, they're also the only major holes visible on the figure. Now, all that said, I gotta be honest. I do find myself really enchanted by the overall appearance of this figure. Firstly, I really love his color scheme. Red is a more prominent secondary color for this design, and they picked a very attractive metallic burgundy that pairs well with the accenting cobalt. The colors look bold and vibrant, thanks especially to this nice neutral canvas provided by the medium grays and silvers of the body. I always love seeing Starscream in a darker color palette too, which reminds me, go to the game, please! You gotta send me a brown stream! The second thing that I love about this figure's appearance is the sculpting. He has a lot of cool paneling shapes, and I really like these mechanical details tucked into his joints. But just like my sister, the head is particularly immaculate. It's quite typical as far as Starscream designs go, but his face sculpting is super clean, and I love this little smug pout that he's rocking. Bro out here auditioning for Kiss Players 2 with those lips though, god damn. I think I'm finna give me a piece of that too. This figure is a real joy to play with too. He's so solid, and he doesn't have any obtrusive kibble getting in the way of posing him. The only weird part of his articulation is his elbows. They're nice and double jointed, but the connector is so long and it's really easy for his arms to look awkward. I find that if you curl his arms with both joints, it makes his elbows look a little more naturally bent. Starscream also exudes so much character thanks to these open hands they've given him. He's full of that exaggerated swagger of a Decepticon air commander, which again would be a lot better if you could naturally pose him on a stand, but country girls make do. I know I said I didn't like the open hands on the last Studio Series Starscream, but Gamer Edition actually has the wrist articulation and weapons to make it work. Starscream's most impressive looking weapon has to be the mace, once more as seen in the first game. It's really big, and he looks kind of funny holding it by the very tip of the handle. It comes in two pieces, and the top part is actually made from the same soft orange plastic that makes up the cockpit, but painted entirely purple. Which seems like a huge waste of money, not gonna lie, and I wouldn't be surprised if this gets left off on any future repaints. But Starscream's main gimmick, naturally, is the weapon swapping. His right hand pops off and can be replaced with any of the weapons selected from the growing arsenal provided by this toy line. Starscream himself includes his signature Null Ray Blaster, but significantly redesigned into a sniper rifle type weapon. Newly incepted for this figure, however, the weapon also has a 5mm peg on the bottom, so it can be held by or mounted on any other non-Gamer Edition figures too, which made me realize, weirdly enough, that this is the only modern Starscream I can think of that can't wield his Null Ray in its iconic shoulder-mounted position. He doesn't do that in the game either, to my knowledge. It's just strange given Hasbro's rock-hard G1 boner that they didn't try to sneak it in as an extra feature somehow. Studio Series Gamer Edition Starscream is a bellwether of where the Transformers brand is today. It's apparent that throughout Gamer Edition's run, Hasbro has treated this series with a good enough mentality that truly does a disservice to its figures. They make such a big deal out of referring to the source material, when anybody with eyes, which is most everybody everywhere, can see how much they've deviated from it. At least this time they admit it. But in the year of our Lord 2024, Hasbro has also proven that they are still more than capable of making good quality, fun, and frankly stylish toys. Gamer Edition Starscream will look really cool while posed on a shelf, but feels sturdy and articulated enough to endure plenty of light play too. I think this figure succeeds as a Starscream figure and is quickly becoming one of my new favorites, but Hasbro needs to quit treating this game like it's the red-headed stepchild of Studio Series. To see how Hasbro nearly fumbled another War for Cybertron figure, check out my review for Studio Series Gamer Edition Bumblebee. But anyway, that's just my opinions. Please leave yours in the comments below. Bye bye.